The Grand Island Public Schools Board of Education meeting. This is the September 12th, 2024 meeting. Notice of this meeting has been advertised in the Grand Island Independent, which is the district's designated method of giving notice of these meetings. We want those in attendance to know that copies of the Open Meetings Act are available at the entrance to the boardroom. If anyone in attendance is interested in addressing our board, you are welcome to do so. We simply request that you complete the appropriate form and turn it in to us so that you may be recognized during the requests to address the board part of our meeting. If you have not already completed the form, please see the staff person outside the entrance to this room. Public comment is welcome. We do ask that no signs be brought into the boardroom. Mrs. Dibbert, would you please call the roll?
Mr. McFarland.
Present.
Mr. Hawley.
Here.
Mr. Garcia Mendez.
Present.
Mrs. Albers. Here. Mr. Sykes.
Here.
Mrs. Jurgens.
Present.
Mrs. Wilson.
Present.
Mr. Helinski.
Here.
Thank you. Okay, the first item on the agenda tonight is a consent agenda. The consent agenda is to be approved as follows. Items number 3.1 through 3.6. Would anyone on, excuse me, I'm in trouble with my computer. This is a consent agenda is published. Would anyone like to add or remove any items on the consent agenda? Seeing none, does, you do?
I do.
Okay.
Okay, so sorry, I was reading, and that is my mistake. I will be abstaining from voting on check number 96168. On agenda item 3.3, I approve all other items on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any potential interest on agenda item 3.3? Seeing none? All right, at this time, I would entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Second.
Seconded by Lisa Albers. Discussion? Seeing none, you may proceed to a vote. Motion passes. Special recognition. Item number 4.1, AP recognition for high school level students from 2023 to 24 AP testing. Mrs. Opal Bentley.
Good evening or good afternoon. I am here with Miss Sophia Heminger, and she was not able to be with us last month as we recognized our AP scholars. So she is here today with her family, and we just want to congratulate her. She received AP Scholar with Honor last year. So congratulations, ma'am. And we would love to get her picture.
All right. Look at me and smile. We're going to take a couple. All right. 1, 2, 3. All right. Stay there. Do you want to come up, Mom? No, you're good? All right. Cool. Wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Subject item number 5, request to address the board. Do we have anyone addressing the board this evening? I don't believe so. Wonderful. Item number 6, information items. Number 6.1, annexation agreement, ordinance 9938, Wildwood Business Park. Mr. Virgil Harden.
Well, good afternoon. I guess I could offer up an hour-long history lesson about how this came about, but I'm going to save that unless you're terribly interested. But past practice for Grand Island Public Schools, when the city of Grand Island annexes land into the city by operation of law, that land becomes part of Grand Island Public Schools unless we would agree otherwise. So through a series of historical events, we've come to the conclusion that it's best for us to just simply take a look at the valuation of the property, average the two levies of the two school districts involved, so Grand Island Public Schools and Northwest, and multiply that out and pay that over an 8-year period to just kind of help Northwest with the transition, because from the time it's annexed then on out forever, that land is part of Grand Island Public Schools valuation for things, all things levy. So the 4 different funds that we levy for, the building fund, the special building fund, bond fund, and qualified fund. So like I said, lots of history there. That's kind of the short version of it. The particular annexation that occurred that we're talking about is ordinance number 9938. The city passed that as a final read, I think August 22nd of 23. Normally I'm a little faster at this, but I just wasn't paying attention to it, so got it on my annual things to look at and make sure I know when the city annexes land. This is the Wildwood Business Park, so it's right along 281 on the west side, and so it's all farmland when it was annexed, and I think it's already being developed, so over time it will add value to Grand Public Schools valuation. So with that, I'll conclude my comments. Happy to answer any questions. It's information only this month. Next month, we'd ask you to approve it, and then once you approve it, we'll just send it off to Northwest for their approval. Assuming they approve it, then we would pay out on or before the end of the calendar year, and it's $48-some thousand.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Harden. Item 6.2, policy, Mr. Matt Fisher.
Okay, policy 6.2. Get on this here. Emergency closings. Actually, this is policy 5232. And let me make that a little bigger so we can see it. Okay, this is basically the procedure and policy that we follow whenever we have an emergency closing, typically for weather. And this is a policy that was in the queue as the next one that hasn't been reviewed for the longest period of time. So that is why we're reviewing it this evening. And as we look through it, there really was nothing that needed to be changed. So this is purely a review. And so this is information this month, and then we would act to adopt it next month as reviewed. Questions on that? All right. And we will move on to 5310, Student Transportation Services. This was a policy that we did need to make a minor change to. If you see the highlighted word there, laws by the state of Nebraska require such transportation to be provided for. The word elementary was in there. In reality, we provide that service, and we're required to provide so by Nebraska statute for all students, not just elementary students living outside the 4 miles, over 4 miles from their attendance center. So that would just be a matter of changing that word in this policy, or actually eliminating that word, not changing it. Questions on that one? All right. Moving right along then. Compulsory attendance, 8320. Basically, a couple of changes here. The first one being very minor. If you'll notice here in this minimum age, it talks about the Grand Island Public Schools. as you recall, a few meetings back, we changed and we decided that that should just say Grand Island Public Schools anywhere it says the Grand Island Public Schools, because the official name is Grand Island Public Schools, not the Grand Island Public Schools. And so there's that minor change as far as just striking that. And then further down here, when a student who is over 16 but hasn't reached the age of 18 decides they want to withdraw from school, that has to go through an approval process, and that approval process involves a meeting of school officials with parents. Parents have to sign off on their leaving school in that 16 to 18 age range, and then there's actually a form that is provided by the state for documenting that that meeting has taken place. And in the policy, the way it was written previously, it indicated that there was a document 8320.2, which would be tied to this, but in actuality, we've just been using the state's document. We haven't ever had our own document. So there is no 8320.2, and so we would just propose changing the wording to say that we would use that Nebraska withdrawal from mandatory attendance form. Questions on that one? I believe
Mr.
that.
Hawley.
Just in keeping with that, if you look at the next paragraph down, exit interview, we're referencing 8320.2 again.
Oh, yeah, we are.
Strike that as well, I believe.
Yep. We would want to do that same change there, yes.
Thank you.
Good catch. I know it. Yeah. All right, very good. So we will make that change before next month's meeting. And other questions on that? All right. And we will move on to 8453, student suspension, expulsion, and mandatory reassignment. This is actually a policy that we had updated here last year. As you'll recall, the state legislature mandated that there could be no suspension or expulsion of students in pre-K through second grade. And the attorneys provided us language to go along with that, but we had a special education review with the Department of Ed, and they decided that we were missing in our policy some language specific to being inside the school. So here again, they're talking, this is number 6 here, exception to pre-kindergarten through second grade students. And down there, midway through that paragraph there, it talks about implementing alternate disciplinary measures. We did just say on a case-by-case basis, but the review indicated that we needed to have that inside the school on case-by-case basis. So this was a change really that was mandated by the Department of Ed to us, that we make this change in our policy. So any questions on that?
Seeing none.
Okay. That is all we have on the policies for this evening then.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Action items. Item number 7.1, District Emergency Operations Plan, EOP. Dr. Summer Stevens.
Good evening. So we're bringing this back this month to ask you to approve the changes that we made and presented last month to the Emergency Operations Plan related to the Individuals with Disabilities Act components that we added last month. So I'd ask for you to make that approval tonight.
Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Stevens? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion this time.
I make a motion to approve the District Emergency Operations Plan as presented.
Second by Ms. Albers. Discussion? Seeing none, we may proceed to vote. Motion passes. Okay, item number 7.2, approval of the MOU for the school resource officers with GIPD.
Again, last month, Mr. Lee Jacobson brought this forward, and again tonight would ask for your approval of the MOU with Grand Island Police Department for school resource officers.
Any questions for Dr. Stevens? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve the MOU for the school resource officers with Grand Island Police Department as presented.
Second by Ms. Albers. Discussion? Seeing none, proceed to vote. Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Reports 8.1, Grand Island Public Schools Foundation Report. Ms. Lindsay Jurgens.
The foundation staff and board met with organizations operating under our umbrella on Tuesday, August 26th, to review policies and procedures and build relationships. The organizations that currently operate under GIPS Foundation's umbrella include booster clubs, special project clubs, and other ongoing philanthropy-funded ventures. The foundation has opened the online classroom grant application. This year, there will only be one round of grants, which will be for projects that benefit students after November or during the spring or summer of 2025. Classroom grants requests will be accepted through September 29th. Classroom grants are designed to fund educational opportunities for students that are not available through the school district's general budget. The foundation will undergo our annual audit next week. The foundation is expanding our team. We've added to our board a student representative, Hasse Jones, I think I got creative there. I think it's Jace Jones. It's Jace Jones. All right. Hasse was unavailable. The foundation worked with Gish to vet the best possible representative. Jace is the 2025 class president. The third annual Harvest Gala will be held on September 26th at Riverside Golf Club. Doors will open at 5:30 p.m. and tickets are available at gipsfoundation.org. The foundation board will have the following business before them at their September 18th, 2024 meeting. And that concludes this report.
Thank you, Ms. Jurgens. Item number 8.2, Superintendent Report. Mr. Fisher.
Okay, probably the biggest item of importance since we met last was that we now have school underway. And we are off and running, actually several weeks in. Everyone kind of seems to be getting settled into their routine, and we're off to a good start. Just looking at our enrollment numbers and how they compared to a year ago, total enrollment for this year right now, as of right now, is 10,072 students. And last year at this time, it was 10,086 students. So almost no change in our total enrollment between last year and this year. Now, one of the other areas that I took a look at was our kindergarten. Our kindergarten enrollment actually has dropped quite a bit. This year our kindergarten is at 671, and last year it was 794. So although there was about the same overall, our kindergarten numbers are down. And I think when you think about how that happens, you go back to some of the reporting that we've had from our newcomers program. And if you'll recall, between the time we started school last year and the time we ended school, we had almost 1,000 students enroll. So when you think about how do we have that much smaller kindergarten and have about the same numbers that we had last year, that's when that, those students that were coming in throughout all of last year, kept those numbers at the level that they were at. So, again, one of the important things to know about those enrollment numbers is, and again, as it changes throughout the year, they do make adjustments, but our state aid is going to be based on the numbers that we're at. And so if our numbers hold steady, then we can kind of expect that unless the legislature changes what they're doing with state aid, that state aid would remain somewhat steady. Of course, there's all the other factors in state aid that go in there as far as poverty and English language learners and so on. But anyhow, that's kind of where we're at in terms of our total enrollment numbers. Obviously, with the start of school, we also got all of our activities for the fall sports underway. I've had the chance to go to just about everything now. I haven't been to a cross-country meet, but I've been to tennis, and I got to go to girls' golf last Friday because they were here in town, and volleyball, softball, football, all those. And now the junior high activities are underway as well, so I've been to some junior high volleyball. I haven't made it to a junior high football game yet, but we'll get there probably next week. So they're playing tonight. So anyhow, all those things are underway. Obviously we haven't won as many games as we'd like to, because you never win as many as you'd like to, but everything seems to be going pretty good with those things. Couple of meetings that we've had here in the past week. Our Parent Advisory Council met this Tuesday for the first time this year. We had a really nice turnout for Parent Advisory Council on Tuesday, and had some good discussion. Really sit down with that group, and we introduced the district leadership team so that they knew who everyone was, and really had each of the district leadership team members talk a little bit about what their role is, because roles have changed quite a bit with the change in number of people that we have on that district leadership team. So we shared that, and then we really asked the Parent Advisory Council to spend a little bit of time identifying some areas that they'd really like to learn more about as we go through this year. And so we got some nice feedback from them on that. The other group that we met with, actually was my second meeting with this group, our student advisory group that meets at the high school. Again, it's a fun group to meet with. We have 4 students from each of the grade levels identified that are a part of that, and this year that group is going to continue some of the work that they started last year with, and this was something they identified that they wanted to do, was to improve GISH's image. And so actually Mitch is going to do work with this group throughout the year and really help them to think about how can we promote the image of GISH and really help people understand the great opportunities that exist there, and really the neat atmosphere that's there that sometimes I don't know that we have our public know enough about. And so, and then also to distill some of the rumors that may not be true, and how do we go about doing that. So I think that'll be a really good project for that group. So one of the, talking about rumors, you've seen the last couple days emails from our communications department about hoax calls with the school shootings that we had in Georgia a couple weeks ago, and then with the one in Omaha this week. One of the things that's popped up, and it's not just here, it's nationally, is that there have been a number of hoax calls, or not necessarily calls, but postings on social media, and that about students who were in a situation where there was a shooter, and really just has generated a lot of angst amongst parents, students, and so we've been working hard to make sure that number one, when those things happen, we have to make sure that there's no legitimacy to it. So we have to bring in the people that we need to bring in right away to make sure there isn't something going on. And then once we've made sure that there wasn't anything going on, then we really have to work to try and make sure that people understand that this was just a hoax. And so we've spent quite a bit of time with that. I know Dr. Stevens and Mitch have worked diligently to make sure we get information out about what truly has happened and what hasn't. Then you throw in, we had one of our buses got hit. And so, again, fortunately, there was no one hurt in that accident, but it was a situation where we had a bus that got knocked over on its side, and so all of a sudden you got concern about that. What's going on with things there. So those are, some of those hiccups along the way. But back on the positive side of things, I did want to share with you that, and again, this goes to school safety and the things that we're doing right. We were recognized as one of the ALICAP being the insurance provider that we have, we were recognized as one of the ALICAP honor roll schools for safety. So I will share this nice little letter that we got from the ALICAP administrator. Congratulations, your district has been selected as one of the 23-24 Safety Honor Roll school districts in the ALICAP pool. We realize an outstanding safety program requires the combined efforts of all those who work for the school district, and they should be commended for their hard work. However, we especially want to commend the effective and proactive efforts of the Safety Committee for their time and leadership in promoting school safety. Your school district is receiving the enclosed ALICAP certificate. So here's the enclosed ALICAP certificate. Suitable for framing, I believe. Enclosed ALICAP certificate of recognition in honor of receiving ALICAP Safety Honor Roll for 23-24. On behalf of the ALICAP trustees, ALICAP loss control consultants, and the members of the Nebraska Association of School Board staff, we salute your commitment to school safety and look forward to working with you and your district in the future. So, congratulations to all of our people that work in that safety area. They recognize about 5% of the schools across the state annually, so that's a nice reflection of the work that we are doing in terms of school safety. So kudos to our safety people. That is the conclusion of my report, unless anyone has any questions.
Ms. Albers.
I just wanted to mention, so at Parent Advisory, I couldn't be there this week because at Noon Rotary, Mr. Fisher and I are responsible for the speakers at Tuesday Noon Rotary for this month. And so Tuesday, Christine Ostermeyer from the FIT program presented, and she did an outstanding job. She had a great PowerPoint, and then took tons of questions from the audience. And so I had mentioned previously that that Noon Rotary chose the FIT program as one of the recipients of some donations this year, some cash donations, which they're using to refurbish bikes, find bikes, buy bikes, clean up bikes, and then give them to kids that are part of the FIT program. And I have to tell you, there were several people that were verklempt in this meeting, and it kind of surprised me. They were just so emotional about, how some of these children are living, and it was just a very impactful presentation, and I was just so proud to be part of GIPS and so proud of Christine and the job that she did. So we have presenters next Tuesday at noon. Dr. Amanda Levos is going to present, and then the following Tuesday, our own Dr. Summer Stevens will be presenting. If any of you are interested in going, you can be my guest or you can be Mr. Fisher's guest if he's planning on being there. So just send us an email, and we'd love to have you come along. So thank you.
Mr. Hawley.
Mr. Fisher, quick question. You were talking about enrollment numbers. Do we have numbers on newcomers thus far this year?
I didn't get any newcomer numbers. They're probably higher right now than they would have been a year ago because of the work that was done this summer. We were actually able to have a lot of those students ready to enroll at the beginning of the school year rather than working them through as we were able to. I think we've had a pretty steady flow of newcomers coming still, even with the work that was done. I was out there and visited the other day, and basically that's what they said. They said that we've had a little bit of breathing room because of the work that was done this summer, but they're still, coming pretty fast. So I don't have any specific numbers. I don't know, do either of you guys have anything specific?
Dr. Levos is going to present in October, so she'll bring an update with some solid numbers by then, because we actually report to the state at the end of September, so those will be a nice time to get an update.
Fantastic, thank you.
Could you repeat that in the microphone so it's on the stream? That Dr. Levos is coming in October to present.
Dr. Levos is coming in October to present, and that will be a great time for us to capture numbers there, and probably really will have a little more settled number as far as the students that began the year, and then also those students that have come since then.
Thank you.
Ms. Jurgens.
I think I've just been a smidge reflective lately because my time on the board is coming to a close. My last meeting will be in December. And, the emails that we get are pretty frequent when there are happenings district-wide. And I just wanted to take a moment to be sure to thank not only Mr. Fisher, but also Mitchell Roush, because the emails that we're getting with all of these updates for unfortunate reasons right now, it just cannot be easy, and it takes an army to move these more than 10,000 students forward. And I just so deeply appreciate our outstanding administrators and leadership within this district. As a board member, I feel incredibly fortunate to know that our students are in good hands and being made as safe as humanly possible with everything in our powers. And that's just not light work. So all these emails coming through, heads up, this is coming out. That all comes from Mitch, and you get to see all that when you're a board member. So I just wanted to be sure to recognize all the work going into all the work that people see. So thank you.
Okay. All right. Item number 9, executive session for the purpose of real estate, because it is in the best interest of the public to discuss this matter in closed session. At this point, I would recommend a motion to convene.
I make a motion to convene executive session for the purpose of discussing real estate.
Second by Ms. Albers. Any discussion? Seeing none, we proceed to a vote. Motion passes. We are now going into executive session. The time is now 5:03 p.m. At this time, I would entertain a motion to go back to regular session.
I make a motion to return to regular session.
Second by Mr. Sykes. Discussion, seeing none, you may vote. Motion passes. The time is now 5:12. We are back in regular session. There is nothing that we will be, there is no action resulting of executive session, so at this time, I would entertain a motion for board to recess for 15 minutes. What's that? Or till 5:30, yeah.
I make a motion for the board to recess until 5:30 PM.
Second by Ms. Albers. No discussion? May proceed to a vote. Motion passes. We are in recess. time is now 5:30 PM. I will take at this time a motion to enter back into session.
I make a motion to enter back into session.
Second by Ms. Albers. Discussion, seeing none, proceed to a vote. Motion passes. Okay, back in session. We're item number 13, taking action, or we're going to, excuse me, take action to appoint a qualified voter of the Hall County School District to fill the vacancy on the Board of Education of this district created by the resignation of Katie Malden, a member of the Board of Education. This appointment will be for the remainder of the unexpired term. Mr. Fisher.
Okay, before we get started with our interviews, just a quick review of the process for board members as well as the public. Each of the candidates that are going to be interviewed has been sequestered in a room so that there's no unfair advantage of one knowing what the questions are ahead of the other. So we will invite each candidate in for an interview, and during that interview, board members are going to be asked to complete a rubric, which was provided by the Nebraska Association of School Boards to score the candidates in a number of areas. At the end of each of the interviews, the completed rubric will be handed in to Mrs. Dibbert. So when we complete an interview, you'll be given a few minutes to finalize your scoring of the rubric. Wanted to make sure that we noted on that rubric that you can enter any score between 0 and 5. So if you feel that a decimal score is appropriate, you can enter that score as well as a whole number score. So hopefully in that way, when we finalize the scoring of the rubrics, there would be no tie amongst the rubrics, because the rubric is going to be utilized for the purpose of breaking a deadlocked vote. Other than that, each of the candidates will be asked a series of questions. Each board member will be asking one question, as well as President McFarland doing an introductory question, and at the end of the interview, the candidate will be asked if they have any questions. During the time that the candidate asks questions of the board, any board member can respond to that candidate's questions. Otherwise, basically, once the 2 interviews are completed, then the board will discuss the positive attributes of each candidate and how they might serve on the board in an effective manner. And once that discussion is concluded, then we will be calling for nominations. Each candidate that is nominated would then need a second. And once the nominations are done, then we will move to a voice vote, voice roll call vote, where each board member will be asked to name the candidate that they feel should be appointed to the board. Basically, that is the process that we will follow, and then if we go through the voting and the vote is deadlocked, we will go back to further discussion of the candidates, and then there will be a call for a second vote. And if after the second vote there is still a tie, then we would go to the rubric and look at the total scores in the rubric as the tiebreaker. Again, with decimal numbers being supplied, there's more than likely the rubric will break that tie, but if by some stroke of misfortune that we ended up with a tie of the rubric, then we would go to a coin flip to settle who the appointment would be. Once the candidate is selected, then we will confer with the candidate to make sure that they want to accept the appointment. And once we've confirmed that they will accept the appointment, then the board will move forward with a motion to appoint that individual. Any clarification any board member would need on the process? All right, let's bring in the first candidate.
Oh, I see, huh? All right. Hello.
Good evening, Mr. Barsanis. We want to thank you very much for putting your name in the hat to join us here on the board. If you would, please tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, where you attended school, what you do, where you volunteered, and family, anything else you think is pertinent to the board.
Awesome, perfect. Well, thank you for having me. And I was just giving a hard time to Mr. Petch. I was looking forward to a list report and hearing what's happening, but hey. No, Carlos Bárcenas, I am a Mexican citizen by birth, U.S. citizen by choice. I have actually been in Nebraska since 1994, about 30 years now. My parents are immigrants to the country. They actually came to the U.S. as missionaries from Mexico to the U.S. So we came in when we were younger. Right away, my first day in Nebraska, in Grand Island, went to Walnut during the summer for English as a second language classes, or ESL as they used to be called. So right away, it was a cultural shock of having to learn the language and also learning the culture of Grand Island. It is different than other states. It is different than other parts of the world. So Grand Island has its own culture. So I was immersed in it right away. From there, I went to Bar and finished my 9th grade there, and then moved to senior high, and graduated from senior high in 1998, something around there. Back in the 1900s. It seems like it. But after graduation, I actually worked a while I was the interpreter and translator for the district, spent some time as a para as well. I am married. My wife, Angela, is from the big town of St. Labour, Nebraska. And we have 4 kiddos. Out of our 4 kiddos, they have all gone through the Grand Island Public School District. My oldest daughter did graduate from Northwest. We are a blended family. So there was a time that she was living with her dad, and she also went to Aurora. But my other 3 children one graduated this year, and my younger ones are in Jefferson and Walnut right now. So it's starting to look at the schedules of events and sports, and I thought it was going to slow down, but all of you know that there's no slowing down in Grand Island Public Schools. So I actually have my own business that I've had for about 5 years. It's called I Choose Purple. And part of it was Grand Island Public Schools, yes, that I chose purple, and also because it was my graduating colors. But I do consulting, I do language services, and I work in leadership development. And the reason for why the name I Choose Purple is really aligns just with the way of I go about everything I do in my life. You guys know that purple is a secondary color, so you got to mix your reds and your blues. Not a political statement, but it could be, right? But the idea that we all have our reds and our blues in what we believe, our life experiences, and in everything that we do. My reason for choosing purple is that sometimes we have to give up things. Sometimes we have to compromise. Not everything is hard right or have left, and as we grow older, the way we view the world, the way we experience things, the way we choose things or decide things, it has to be a conscious decision. So that's why my business is called I Choose Purple, because I enjoy having coffee with people and having comfortable conversations about how do we continue to be better human beings? How do we continue to connect, especially when we have to connect with people that look different than who we are or do things different than we are, not just at an ethnic level, but also socioeconomics, also gender, religion, political. So there's so many things that make who we are and many identities that we feel are important to us. And the more we can figure out why we do the things we do and why we make decisions, the better we can make decisions, especially during conflict. Because the better we know ourselves, we're able to listen better and actually be curious about other people's experiences and ask, why is this important to you, before we share why it's important to us. So that's what I do as a business. I have, in the time that I've lived in Grand Island, I have volunteered from the Multicultural Coalition to 4th Street BID, from Rotary, from activities on the nonprofit sector, religious, spiritual sector. I've been just involved in a lot of Habitat for Humanity. So it's just been a little bit of everything. If I have an opportunity, The more my kids are busy in their school, sometimes the less we take time to do those volunteer activities, but we continue to find places to plug ourselves in. I've told you quite a bit, so I don't know if I missed something in that list of a little bit about me that you want to ask me about. Otherwise, I'll pass it on to you.
Okay, Ms. Jurgens.
What is your vision for education in the Grand Island Public Schools District?
The same one that we've had back there, every student, every day a success. And what I've liked about that vision is that that doesn't really change as much as the board might change, or administrators might change, or student population or parents. My vision is to continue to be committed to how do we identify every student and how we identify every staff and make a connection so that we can actually meet the needs of every student. And it's tough in a growing district, it's tough to do. But I do believe that the more we can focus on what is my role as an educator, what is my role as a parent, what is my role as a board member, and we can make those connections, we can truly live out that every day, every student every day a success. And I don't mean to sound cliche-ish, the idea of, what the vision of it is, but I believe it's a reality. My 4 children are different. Each one of them have their own single way of living life. And with one of them, I have to push them to do sports, and the other one I have to push for academics. One of my girls I want to push to be inside, and the other one outside. It's so many different needs. And that can go on reading and curriculum. So again, the vision for me is how do we continue to figure out what are those gaps? We know what we're doing well. Why are we doing it well? Where are we missing something? Why not question it? Why not continue to make it better? And also with the reality that sometimes the answer is we don't have the resources, we don't have the program, we're not able to do it right now, but continue to put it on the board for continuous growth.
Ms. Wilson.
What qualities, skills, or experiences have prepared you to serve as a board member?
I was just actually speaking with Miguel as we were sharing. I've known Miguel for a while, and one of the things that I love about the district is the opportunity to have so many people that know what they're doing as professionals, not only as administrators, board members, and teachers, that there is the opportunity to be challenged on what you believe and think, but there's also the opportunity for grace and empathy and be able to help you out. So willingness to have to ask those questions of, I'm not sure, I don't know. What qualities or skills or experiences? I did have the opportunity to serve on the board for 10 years. While I know some things change, many things continue to be the procedures, the systems, the way you do things are very similar. They don't change as much, right? So I think that gives me a little bit of knowledge of how things work. But I also, one of the things that I've always applauded the district is the willingness to say, we're going to try it, we're going to do it, even if we're the first ones or the only ones in the community doing it, and even if we'd receive the backlash from the community, from other community leaders, from other point of view, we're going to try it and do it. So I believe that experience has given me just that opportunity to know that we can tackle things, and it takes a whole team. It takes a whole team of people to be in the room, and that I'm willing to, as I share when you go to executive session, I have laughed in that executive session, I have cried, I've been angry, I've been happy, but as soon as we open the door to continue to the work, we all know that it was for the best of this, for the students, for the best for our district, and that you don't take those things personal. It's a matter of doing the work and living the passion for the district. And I've lived in Grand Island for the last 30 years, and I do believe that diversity of representation is key, but I also believe the diversity in thought is also key. So having people at the table with different experiences, different backgrounds, different spiritual beliefs, with different political stands, but the willingness to put it at the table and say, how do we continue to serve our community, allows me to bring what I've lived in my community. I think Grand Island is one of the greatest places to live, but on the same space, I know that we've had struggles, and I know that socioeconomic sometimes is an issue. I know that sometimes race, ethnicity is an issue. The political climate that we're living in, I think merits people in the board that are willing to have robust conversations about those things that matter to parents and that matter and impact students every day.
Mr. Helinski.
How would you handle potential conflict between you and another board member?
You know, I think I don't think that's changed. You have your code of ethics, you have your code of conduct, and there is a living statement that I think we all have to take seriously. The best way of doing it is, if conflict happens, sometimes we need that conflict, and conflict is gonna arise. And when it comes to doing the business of the school district, it's good, right? Because we're discussing, we're challenging, we're trying to put things forward. But the moment there is a break on trust, or not following the code of ethics, or leaking information, or saying or talking behind each other's back, then I think the best way to do it is face to face, is to say, hey, is this what you meant? Is this what happened? And I think we're all adults, we're all professionals, where we want to go back to what is our role. And if there is conflict outside of that role that is happening as board members, we need to address it. And it might, first thing might be either going to the superintendent saying, hey, I saw this, or talking to the president saying, hey, this is what I think is happening, and trying to address it in the best way we have our process, or the school district has a process to do it in.
Ms. Albers.
Many board members are surprised by the time commitment the board requires. Have you discussed the time commitment the board appointment would require with your employer and your family?
My employer, being it's me, doesn't want to let me do it, but no, I think, yeah, I actually, even today, I talked to my wife, I'm like, you sure you want to do this? Just because we understand that it's a commitment, and I understand that it's been a commitment before. I know there has been the information in social media regarding, there's maybe less commitment, or maybe less things to do because of how committee structure has changed. I don't know that from my point of view, as I see the work that you're doing, I don't see how much it has changed. So say this respectfully, I mean, I think there's continues to be a lot of work to do. So I don't know. If there is less time than before, I would be, or more time. If we were going to be more busier than we were before, I would be concerned. But I think we realize it's a time commitment. It's a great experience as well to serve our community. So yes, I've talked to my employer and my wife.
Okay. What are the current challenges you see facing education and school boards today?
Honestly, I think it continues to be the misinformation piece. During you guys at the regular school board meeting, you talked about rumors and perception. One of the things that I have learned, and now even as I finished my terms the last season, I would say misinformation and how easy it is for social media to spread information, and then trying to get ahead of it. So kudos to Mitch and the team, just because it can be anything from traffic or the bus happening. It can be anything from political. It can be from we're going into an election. So I think that continues to be many times one of the barriers we have to face. Facing in education, when it comes to facing in education and school boards, education is the funding. I think that's always the thing. School boards, I continue to really believe that as much as information we put out there, or you put out there, of what the school board is doing, we're still, as a community, very naive many times of knowing what's happening, how much work goes in from administrators and from teachers. And I really don't know how you get ahead of it. There's so much going on. So from the work that you do as board members, there's a lot that you do that the community does not know. As administrators, there's a lot of work that you do in time that the community doesn't know. So again, I think it's very easy for someone to question on social media, or this is what's happening. But the more we can have those conversations face to face, the more we can engage. I love, bringing families in, having all the communities that you see, parents and business owners come in and partners from the community. I think that continues to be a barrier in the sense of how can we continue to grow that area.
Mr. Garcia Mendez.
Thank you. How would you handle a request or concern if approached by an individual or special interest group?
Send it to the chain of command. I think, again, we have a process. There is a process. And maybe there are groups or people that might say or might think they don't agree with the process or they were unaware of the process, but it's respecting and following the process. We actually just talking with Mr. Hawley the other day about, I like the chain of command. And even as a parent, I have to remember that if I have an issue, I don't go straight to the board or to the superintendent. I want to start with my teacher, right? I want to start with, and also the reality, there's some people that might be curious about how the work and how things work, so start there. Doesn't mean that I'm not willing to have a conversation, just being careful on how I handle that information and also how I represent the district. So if there is a request or concern from the media, from a special group, it's always letting superintendent know, always letting the president know, and the fellow board members know what's happening.
Okay. Mr. Sykes.
You mentioned social media. My question has to do with that. How would you handle misinformation you found on social media about a vote or policy?
Yeah, again, I think going back to the source, and that's, again, one of those barriers that even sometimes when you as board members have been approached or as the media team has put information out there, it doesn't matter that you said, yep, this happened, you're going to be told, nope, that didn't happen, or vice versa, this doesn't happen. So it's being able to have those conversations. And I know that during COVID and during 10 years I was here, throughout those 10 years, I did have the opportunity to sit down with community members who truly were pushing back on different issues and just sat down and say, okay, let us know what's happening. Let's try to clear it out. I think as parents, there's times that we are, parents and community members, we might be frustrated with something and we might vent out and put it out there in social media. And there are some requests or sometimes that you do have to address it directly. I've tried to address it with the people that are in my circle of influence and affluence. When I see something that is posted there, being able to say, I'm actually on the board and this is what happened and this is how it works. And then jump into the conversation that, well, I don't agree with it. Well, if you don't agree with it, here's what we can do about it, or here are the next steps. Again, I think as much as you can put out there, it seems like you never hit 100% of making sure that you reach everybody. So how would I handle misinformation is being able to at least go back to the source and say, hey, here is what actually happened, here's the source, and continue that conversation if groups, people, individuals want to continue to have that conversation.
Mr. Hawley.
The Board of Education is generally considered a nonpartisan board. How will you ensure that your personal political views do not unduly influence your decision-making process on the board, especially when it comes to policies that impact students, teachers, and the community?
I love this question, and I think one of the reasons back when I joined the board, what I really loved about school boards, it was really the non-political aspect that existed, right? But things have changed, and it influences how we see the world and what we do, especially during election years. But the way I make sure and how I want to ensure that my personal and political views don't influence my decision-making is by, one, I want to make sure that I'm doing my job as a board member. And then I want to challenge my fellow board members to continue to do their job as board members, because the more we can challenge each other and be able to say, call things out and be able to guide each other and support each other as we do the district's work, I think that lends its hand to make sure that our biases or influences on personal beliefs are not clouding our judgment. And many times when I was on the board, I voted for things that maybe I personally didn't align to or for. But because of the work we did as a board, I saw how it actually impacted children. So I did vote yes, even though on things that I might have personally not aligned, politically not aligned, spiritually not aligned, because it didn't really matter. It's about the kids. So it's just continue to check myself on my beliefs, on my biases, You know, one thing that I try, and I'm still working, I'm a work in progress, is when you get that butterfly, that gut-wrenching feeling in your stomach when somebody doesn't agree with you or they say something that you're not sure what they said, is asking me the question, why do I feel uncomfortable? So that's how I try to keep a check of ensuring that my biases don't get in the way. Is asking, because the moment I get uncomfortable, I want to ask, why did I get uncomfortable? Is it because of my own personal view? Is it because of my own personal bias? And if it is, just making sure that I'm aware, and make sure I ask more questions to myself and the group, and continue to ask the question, does this meet every student every day as success? Does that influence it? So.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Barcenas, do you have any questions of us?
No, not a thing at this time. No questions.
Questions? Okay. All right, at this point in time, you may go back to the Neil room.
We'll give the board a few minutes to complete the rubric, and then we'll let you know when to when you're going.
so.
All right.
Okay, right here.
Good evening, Mr. Baez. Aguilera, excuse me if when I butchered that. We welcome you to this evening. Thank you for putting your hat in the ring. And if you would, please tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, where you've attended school, what you do, where you volunteer at, family, anything else that you think might be pertinent to this board.
Okay, perfect. My name is Miguel Baez Aguilera. I was born in Guanajuato, Mexico, brought here at the age of 4, and Grand Island is home. So I grew up here, went through all my public education here in Grand Island. So Howard Elementary, Walnut Middle School, and then Grand Island Senior High. Currently right now I serve as an assistant director of admissions for Wayne State College, remotely most of the time, so I work from home. And I got my undergraduate and my undergraduate degree and then my master's degree at the University of Nebraska at Kearney. So in terms of kind of where I come from, what has been my upbringing in the educational system here in Grand Island, I can tell you guys, first and foremost, it's always been like an inner battle because I've gone through a lot of adversities since I was a child. So for me, rather than worried about school and the good grades, my focus was how am I going to get through to the next day because of internal battles, right? I went through SA, sexual assault or sexual abuse as a child. So that was my daily constant struggle as a child through middle school, through Grand Island Senior High. As opposed to that, while I could have gone downhill and chosen to get bad grades and do all that other stuff, I still kept the focus on school. So for me, school was always an internal battle, but also just always a getaway, you know, which is one of the reasons that I guess has me where I am today in terms of education. I feel every child deserves to grow up being a child and not focus about anything else but being a child, being themselves, and looking forward to learning and getting that experience at school with their teachers. A little more about what brings me here and what has me at the spot I am personal is I always get asked the question, you know, who is your mentor, role model in life? I get watery eyes. I shake up a bit when I have to answer that question just because I can't really pinpoint a mentor in my life. I've had to be my own mentor. I've had to be my own role model at many times, you know, from the moment I was a child through middle school, high school, and even in college, right? So I've never had that person that I can indicate being a mentor to me. If anybody comes close to that label, it would be my mother, even though she has sat with me at recognitions, award ceremonies, and all this stuff that not having a clue of what I'm getting recognized for. You know, when I dropped out of college, she was one to tell me, I have no idea what you're going through. I wish I could understand, but I will never understand. But whether you decide to go back, I got you. If you don't go back, I still got you, right? I suppose my dad was like, oh, I told you, you know, college ain't for everyone. So, of course, I went back and did all that good stuff. But other than that, I come from a very humble family background. I am me, and what you see in front of you is what you're going to get out of me. I don't change for a title. I don't change based on what anyone really has to say. And that's just one thing about me is I preach authenticity, and to be authentic, you have to be vulnerable in your experiences, vulnerable in your past, vulnerable in sharing your present, and vulnerable in sharing your goals for the future. So, let's see, family, how long? And I've lived in Rhode Island all my life. So yeah, this is home. I always tell my parents, guys, go to Mexico. So you guys give me a reason to go to Mexico and visit you guys. But this is my home. I'm never moving, to Mexico. So, yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Lindsay.
What is your vision for education in the Grand Island Public Schools District?
My vision is kind of what I just stated. For every child, every youth, every young adult to have that person they can identify as a mentor, someone that they know that they can go and turn to. It doesn't mean you have to have 5 favorite teachers, but maybe just that one person, whether it's the janitor, whether it's the principal, whether it's, staff, faculty, whoever, just that one person that, even if it's a community member, pulling them, pushing them to keep going, that one role model. And ultimately, to just have an equal educational experience, the same shot as everyone else at obtaining and keeping faith that their goals can become their reality in the future.
Amanda?
What qualities, skills, or experiences have prepared you to serve as a board member?
I think my past, my personal adversities, as well as my professional involvements. As an undergrad, well, even in high school, even in middle school, I remember being a pal. I remember being pushed by Mrs. Richardson to be a character ambassador, not having a clue what that was. I remember going to DC for the first time traveling, not really knowing, what am I going for? What am I doing? I think just every experience I've lived has really prepared me to sustain myself and be where I'm at today. Undergrad, going through that mental breakdown because I battled in depression for so many years of my life. It's the combination of all those experiences, both in the educational setting as well as out of the educational setting, with community ties, without community ties. It all just culminates into little pieces of the big puzzle, which is who I am today.
Dave.
How would you handle conflict with potential conflict with another board member?
The first piece of handling conflict with anyone is just listen and not listen to respond. And I think that's a key point that many people miss. Many people are listening to other people's point of views, discussions, to respond, to be ready to say what they're going to say, right? I listen to listen. I look at, I listen to the emotions attached to what is being said. I listen to the facts of what's being stated and discussed. I listen to, in reality, what there really is truly to listen to. And when it comes to conflict, when it comes to depending on the situation, I'm a firm believer that as long as it's all for the good of faith, and there'll be a resolution. Not everybody will have their way every time, but as long as it's all oriented towards the mission of something or what is being discussed, I'll be there to listen. And I'm not really gonna argue with someone. I think, as human beings, it's all time and place, it's professionalism, and then that's why the procedures also exist, in terms of operational settings and boards. So.
Okay, Lisa?
Many board members are surprised by the time commitment the board requires. Have you discussed the time commitment the board appointment would require with your employer and your family?
So I didn't tell my employer I was actually doing this. I think they're in it for the surprise. I haven't heard from them, actually. So in terms of my family is always my top priority no matter what. My family will always be, I've always said my pyramid of life is my faith, then myself, because if I'm not healthy, nobody else under me will be happy, or nobody else can be happy, right? And then my family. And then I prioritize my commitments in terms of the people, the community, and what I'm investing my time and efforts into, right? Now, have I had this self-discussion with myself? Yes, I have. I'm a very busy individual. I think that's just who I am and what I've really done with myself growing up. Just keep busy, busy, busy. But then I also take time for myself as well, right? Mental health is important. So I've had a discussion with myself, and I've had these thoughts of like, is this something I can handle? Is this something that's going to be added to my plate, or it's going to overfill, or is this something that, Is it really time? Is the time for me now or not? So while there's things being added, possibly there's also things being removed off my plate currently, which is why I went forward, or one of the reasons I went forward with going ahead and applying for this vacancy. So, hope that answers it.
Okay. What are the current challenges facing education school boards?
I think they're just challenges that, will continue to be there no matter what, no matter who comes in and goes out, which it can go from racism to the shortage of teachers, to addressing budgets to serve the community, to communication and transparency with the community, support for the staff, for the teachers, for the district. I mean, I think those are just challenges that, as much as we aim and try as humans in this community, as in society, to change and fix, they'll continue to be there in existence. Now, can we make them better for people? Yes, we can. But will they ever go away completely? No, they won't. Challenges also exist, the LGBTQ, how do they feel in the community? How do our students feel? Diversity, equity, inclusion, and how that plays a role within our administration, within our teachers, within our students, right? Those are all just examples of the issues I can see, that the board has to face and deals with, whether they're bigger in this community than others or minor compared to other communities.
Mr. Garcia Mendez.
Thank you. How would you handle a request or concern if approached by an individual or special interest group?
So first and foremost, it would be communication with the rest of the board, right? It's a team effort. It's not me outside of everybody else. It's a group. It's a team. It's a board, right? Then definitely encouraged to come to the board. Address this, to bring this up to the board. I appreciate the confidence. I appreciate the trust in bringing it to me, but bring it to the team, right? And help them understand that they can do that. Help them understand that this is what this board is here to listen to the community, listen to that group, listen to that individual, so that their voice is heard, right? If I have to be the initial voice for them, which would be communicating to the rest of the board, I will be. But essentially, I would give them to address it to everyone during board meetings. So.
Josh Sykes.
How would you handle misinformation you found on social media about vote or policy in regard to the board?
So when it comes to vote and policy, facts. I won't speak unless I have the knowledge on it. Personally, that's just me though, right? As a board, I mean, we'd have to handle, I believe we'd have to look up the facts, bring the facts. Social media, obviously, as we hopefully all know, it can sway everywhere. You could do something for the community and people will use it and turn it against you. I'm like, oh man, he's doing it to get attention, or he's doing it so he looks good in front of the community. Or vice versa, you could be helping impact the world and people can see it as like an inspiration, like busy, has lots on his plate, but still able to do it, When it comes to just, negativity and what you stated, it depends how we take it and then back it up with facts. Back up what is being stated with proof, right? Evidence. And I think that's the best way to hit when there's false information out there. Hit it with the truth.
Mr. Hawley.
The Board of Education is generally considered a nonpartisan board. How will you ensure that your personal political views do not unduly influence your decision-making process on the board, especially when it comes to policies that impact students, teachers, and the community?
The core is students, teachers who serve our students. I'm not here to push my personal beliefs in anything that has to do with politics upon anybody. I'm here to look out for the well-being of our students, who hopefully, their focus is, depending on the age level they're at, chasing that faith, that dream, that goal to become the next politician, I don't know, the next teacher, the next doctor. Keeping in mind the mission of why we sit in these seats as board members, and refocusing our focus back, or locking our focus back on what needs to be really addressed and focused when it comes to having those discussions. Like I said, me personally, I'm here for my community. I'm here to serve my students. Whether it's part of this board or not part of this board, nothing changes. The passion for serving those students and making that difference, whether it's picking up my nephews every day after school when I have the chance to hear about how their day went, to inspiring the next senior year student because he heard me give a speech and that was it. I can do this too. It doesn't change. So.
Do you have any questions for us, Miguel?
I do have one. What is I don't know if good is the proper term, but what does a good board member look in your guys' eyes?
Miss Albers.
One great thing about the board is that everybody has different strengths. And somehow just when you get these different personalities together and you get different backgrounds together, everybody's strength seems to rise to the top. So you kind of find your niche and there might be certain things that I enjoy that other people on the board don't enjoy. And so I think it's really about being collaborative, and you have to really be able to listen, and you've been speaking about that, and understand where the other person is coming from, and really just be respectful. Things happen that you don't necessarily agree with. I mean, that happens, but you have to think about the greater good too. Mm-hmm. And so it's just about being patient and using your time and talent wisely to serve on the board.
Awesome. Thank you.
Anyone else like to respond? Mr. Hawley.
I think when it comes to being a good board member, you have to be open to different ideas. So I can tell you that sitting with these folks, I've had my mind changed several times, where I was very, very hard in one direction, and before the meeting was over, I was voting in a different way. But it's about being authentic. You are who you are, and the way you feel about all things in life, whether that's family or religion or politics, it's always going to enter. But at the end of the day, you have to keep students as the number one priority. And we have to ask ourselves that question: how does this serve our students? And if it doesn't serve all of our students, then we have to look a different direction. But being able to collaborate and have tough conversations is kind of a key to being a good board member.
Awesome. Thank you.
Since you guys laughed at me, I will say something. Being patient and being a learner from all of my expertise of being a board member for all of not even 2 years yet. So being patient and being a learner.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your time and your
Thank
answers.
you, guys.
We appreciate
Thank you.
your putting the hat in the ring. Okay. Well, at this point in the evening, we'll now get to share what we feel are the positive attributes we see in each candidate. So I suppose we can move forward with that.
Do you want to do that, like Carlos first, then Miguel, or do you want it all together?
I'd say let's go ahead and do Carlos first. What's that?
Am I speaking into the microphone? Okay. I have the privilege of knowing both of these gentlemen already, and I feel that we are in a very fortunate position in that they're both very sincere. What you see is who they are. I do feel that for Carlos, he is incredibly engaged in the community in a very specific way, and that is to bridge divides. His work, all of his volunteerism. Historically, he has a tremendous amount of volunteerism with GIPS, and I feel that that lends itself to being a really effective board member. I've also been able to serve on this board with him, and I saw that to be true across the board, no pun intended. So that probably stands out to me more than anything, particularly about Carlos.
Ms. Albers.
So I too have known Carlos for a long time, consider him a friend. What's nice about Carlos is he can hit the ground running. He already knows what's happening within the district. He stayed in tune. He still has kids here. And I wanted to mention, if anyone has, any issues because he was defeated in the last election, there is a precedent here because when Lindsay was elected, Kelly Inc. had moved districts, and then Terry Brown, she had defeated Terry Brown, and Terry Brown came back in and interviewed, and one of the questions he asked us is, does anybody have any issues with me coming back on the board? And of course we didn't. And I think Lindsay can attest to what his institutional knowledge added, to your tenure on the board, just having him back on the board. Elections can be funny things, and it was really a blessing to have Terry back on the board, when we needed him. And so if anyone has any uneasy feelings just about that component of it, I really don't think that needs to be a worry. But I think Carlos has really the skills that a good board member has. He's done it for 10 years. He's a great communicator, really in tune with the district already, has kids here. So I think he has some really positive attributes that'd be good for the board.
Anyone else like to talk about Mr. Barsanis? Eric.
I also agree. I know both of these gentlemen. I actually serve on the Big Brothers Big Sisters board with Miguel for about 3 years now. So I think thinking about Carlos, I like that he has the experience of knowing what it means to be a newcomer, student, being new to the community, being new to this environment, and also just the wealth of knowledge that he comes with. I just think that's also we have really good candidates in terms of representation. If you consider Ward C, it's a pretty diverse, lower socioeconomic status community, and it's just really great options that we have here. But yeah, that's just something that I think that's a good perspective that Carlos has, is that has a similar lived experience as other students in the district.
Mr. Hawley.
I think you've all brought up great points, and I don't know how much I can actually add to that, but I think in knowing Carlos, especially in our time on the board, Carlos is somebody who is open to having tough conversations. And I think that that's a lot of what happens in here. We've had things out. We've all sat in meetings. And being able to look at things from different perspective. And I think he brings that to the board, as well as, like you said, the experience piece I think is great. Carlos can hit the ground running. Not a lot of learning curve here, and in the time he's been gone, not a lot has really changed. So.
Okay. All right, seeing no others to talk about Mr. Barcenas, now we'll move on and speak about Mr. Baeza Aguilera. Ms. Jurgens?
I had a particular fondness for the question. Oh, I should have read this first. I started talking. Darn it. I was going to refer specifically to what he spoke about the mentoring piece. I love that that was part of sort of his vision. I think he responded to my question, didn't he? Yes. The wanting more mentoring for our students. Clearly, as Eric mentioned, he serves on a board centered on mentoring, and so there's immense value in that. So again, kind of also what Eric mentioned, he's also, both of our candidates have lived experience in GIPS and understand kind of what that walk is, and I think that's just a great advantage. But the component specifically about the mentoring and the value of that, I thought that was pretty cool.
Eric?
Yeah, I think to add on that, his term ends in December for the Big Brothers Big Sisters board, so I think that's something that he was alluding to at the end, that as kind of some things were getting off of his plate of responsibilities, he would have that flexibility. Also, another thing is that he works in our building, right? He works at kind of in Grand Island Senior High sometimes with kids that are preparing to go to college, right? He has that connection to Wayne State College, which is a really good relationship building piece. I think that is something that we could potentially consider in terms of building more partnerships with Wayne State College in the future. And then also just his perspective of just being younger, right? I think that's always a valuable perspective.
Be careful here.
Hey, no, but having that perspective, right, of like just recently kind of graduating high school in 2011, right? It was 2011. So he's not that far displaced, right, from what children right now, youth, are experiencing in terms of this changing world, right? And I think that's speaking from someone who also like does not have kids, right, but also does have nephews in the school district. I think that's another perspective that's really valuable, I guess, to the board. But in terms of that, I think he also has, like I said before, similar lived experience as a lot of kids in the district, and I think that's really awesome.
Mr. Hawley?
I think one response that he gave that I thought was really, really great from Dave's question was listening to listen. I feel like that's a very, very hard thing to do. It's something I've had to try and learn to do, and I may have not always been successful. But inherently, we're looking for those key points so we can respond to something, and I just thought that was a really great point, listening to listen and actually understand what's being said prior to responding.
Anyone else? Anyone? Ms. Albers?
I didn't know this young man before he walked in here, but I do love his passion and his energy, and I do think he has a passion for kids.
Exactly. Okay, seeing that we have no other discussions on either candidate, what we would like to do now is to call for nominations to fill the vacancy. So if someone would like to nominate one of the individuals, please. Ms. Albers?
I'd like to nominate Carlos Barcenas for the vacant school board seat.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Hawley. Do we have any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Miguel Baeza Aguilar for the vacant school board seat.
Seconded by Mr. Garcia Mendez. So we have two candidates for certain. That will close all nominations. Sorry, I'm trying to follow the script, so. Okay. Now, I guess we go to the voice vote.
Basically, in the voiced vote, it's a roll call vote, so Mrs. Dibbert will call each board member's name, and you will indicate the candidate that you are voting for.
Mr. McFarland,
Mr. Beza Aguilar.
Mr. Hawley,
Carlos Barcenas.
Mr. Garcia Mendez,
Carlos Barcenas.
Mrs. Albers,
Carlos Barcenas.
Mr. Sykes,
Carlos Barcenas.
Mrs. Jurgens,
Carlos Barcenas.
and Mrs. Wilson.
Carlos Barcenas.
Mr. Helinski.
Baeza Aguilar.
Okay. We have our winner, Mr. Barcenas, so
So at this point, we will confirm with the candidate that they are willing to accept the appointment, and then we will move to a motion to make that appointment.
board, okay. At this time, I would entertain a motion to vote on appointing Carlos Barcenas to the Board of Education.
I make a motion to appoint Mr. Carlos Barcenas, a qualified voter of Hall County District Ward C, to fill the vacancy on the Board of Education of this district. This appointment will be for the remainder of the unexpired term of Katie Malden.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Garcia Mendez. Any discussion? Seeing none, we may proceed to a vote. All in favor? Motion passes. Let's see here. Sorry, pardon me, my computer went down. Okay. We'd like to, at this point, thank both Carlos and Miguel for coming in and putting themselves under the pressure of an interview. Thank you very much. You were both excellent candidates. Both would be excellent members of the board. So thank you so much for coming out and telling us about yourselves. And we hope we see you in the future. And congratulations to Mr. Barcenas. Notification of upcoming meetings. We have a Board of Education workshop Thursday, September 19th, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. The Board of Education special meeting will be on Monday, September 23rd, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. And then we will have a regular Board of Education meeting Thursday, October 10 at 5:30 p.m. And at this time, we are adjourned.